right then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome today. We're excited to have all you here, and I'm going to get started. But before we get started, my name is Ebonie Rayford, and I am the Assistant Dean of Student Life and Director of Career Strategy, and your moderator for this morning's discussion. So I would like to do a brief introduction of all of our hosts on stage, our talkers, which is not the right word. But we will begin with Campagne. Cassie is a second-year undergraduate student at Franklin University, Switzerland, majoring in social justice and sustainability. Through an interdisciplinary study of political science, business, communication, she is focused on the topic of corporate social responsibility. Casey. All right, we have Kate Taylor. You can raise your hand so we can see who you're at. That's Casey, and there's Kate over there. All right, and so Kate is also a second-year undergraduate student at Franklin. She's majoring in environmental science and minoring in political science, specifically interested in sustainable development. And we have Paige, Ariane, who is a grad student this year with us at Franklin, and she is also completing her MSIM in Responsible Management and Climate Action, concentrating in indigenous water management as a way to preserve and protect her culture and community. Paige. All right, and then we have a Franklin alumna, which is Ariane Stalé here with us today. Very excited to have her. Always love to have our Franklin alumni here. Born in Switzerland, Ariane studied at what was then called Franklin College. She then earned a bachelor's degree in business and economics and started her career in international finance, for which she earned her Series 7. She has a master's degree in special education, very nice, with a focus on gifted education. She worked with the United Nations in New York for several years, after which she moved to London to turn her focus to project management operations, working closely with management in the industries of luxury and design, as well as logistics, technology, and renewable energy. She is currently Chief Operations Officer of Aldesso, which is an interior design firm based in Lugano that specializes in sustainability luxury. How nice. All right, then we have Ariane. So we are now going to begin with some kickoff questions. All right, we're going to start off with the kickoff questions. And the first question is, I'm sorry, I just need to be in a little bit of light. All right, at higher education institutes, why is education about sustainability valuable in a range of disciplines? And at this moment, everybody's going to give their answer of why they feel this way. Okay, and we will begin with Casey.
Let's see, is this on? Okay, it did work. So I wanted to talk a bit about the concept of sustainability, as it's been around for many years and is constantly being redefined, but it appears that in the media, the definition is kind of stagnant. I think it mainly revolves around environmental sustainability. You see news outlets reporting on climate change and natural disasters, but you don't see any of the other aspects which have come to be developed recently, such as social sustainability, economic, political, and cultural. But these are all such important aspects that we really need to bring back into our focus. And I think this singular lens that has been of light that's been shown on environmental sustainability places the biggest burden on those in the field to solve the issue. It's, I don't understand how solar panels work. I don't know the technology behind wind turbines, so it's not my problem. The scientists, the researchers can deal with that. And I think that we need to begin to take more responsibility and realize that all of the different disciplines can actually play a role in solving the issue. And also that solving something on such a large scale requires all these different actors in society, because any action, anything that we want to do, requires us to communicate and cooperate with many different facets. So, I mean, take for example, when you want to buy your first house, main milestone in many people's lives, and to do so, you need to work with the government, get a deed to pay your taxes. You need to work within the economic system, possibly get a loan from the bank. You need to work within your community, interact socially and culturally with those around you, even learn a new wastage or recycling system. So even in such a simple act as that, you're interacting with all of these different components of society. And when we're translating that to these bigger issues, we see that we're going to need a lot of cooperation across the board. So that's why I think that education needs to be emphasized within all these different disciplines, especially in higher education, so that when we go forward into our careers, we can all work together and know that we have a part to play and that we need to take responsibility and do our own. We all have something to give to this issue, and that we need to really work together to solve it. That is what I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Casey. So now we'll have Kate.
It's a small red button on the bottom.
Testing?
Yep.
Is that on? Okay, beautiful. Okay, so kind of to follow what Casey started us off with this morning, I wanted to begin by saying that sustainability is not just for the people in the environmental science field. It's actually super important that everyone is invested in sustainability. It is a transdisciplinary framework that helps humans learn to coexist together and ultimately thrive on our planet, allowing other species and our environments to thrive as well. Therefore, the study of each human discipline, from economics, history, philosophy, culture, and biology, are all interconnected and cannot be separated when learning about sustainability. In our modernized and highly connected world, all facets of education and human existence are crucial and fundamental to sustainability. To succeed as a human species, everyone must learn about how we can move towards a more sustainable framework and ways to transform at the human, social, and global levels. So I was going to talk about kind of each three levels and how education can be implemented at all three levels. So the human level is just our individual choices and behaviors. And a lot of people, I think, can kind of get thrown off by this because they see being more eco-friendly and more sustainable as a burden to their enjoyable lives. But it's quite the contrary. Discovering new ways to create a more sustainable lifestyle for ourselves is actually transformed the way that I see the world. And now I have a greater appreciation for the foods that I eat. I've met some of my most incredible friends through this journey, and has inspired a mindset shift that learning is a conscious and continual lifelong journey. At the social level of sustainability, we look at the social interactions resulting in the environmental and social problems that our world is faced with today. But it also looks for solutions involving governments, industry, economics, businesses, local communities, and the environment. And at the global scale of sustainability, which in the end is the most important, we look at the interconnected dynamics of our global systems, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, biosphere, and geosphere. And we encompass problems and possible solutions arising from our highly interactive relationships among all three levels, which is sustainability. We have to learn that Learning sustainability should give us hope. For me, it has inspired great hope for the future of humans and all species on Earth, because we focus on the critical interdependencies between humans and our ever-changing environments. It has opened up a greater appreciation for how incredible but fragile nature is, and a greater respect for our planet, which I think is vital to learning about sustainability. It teaches us across all disciplines that we can inspire a greater appreciation for society and the environment. We don't only depend on our environment for food, for water, for clean air, and raw materials, but several other ecosystem services that often go unnoticed. But we also can help Earth to prosper. It's a two-way street. However, creating this transformation will take all of us, not just the people in the environmental science field. So studying sustainability is the first step to creating an equitable world where Earth, its land, animals, and people can thrive together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. If you want to clap, clap. Go for it. All right. Okay, so now we have Paige.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. My view on sustainability might be a little bit different, just because I do view it more in an environmental aspect. And I believe that studying sustainability in all disciplines is vital. I think that the climate change and climate justice of our lifetime will be the fight of our lifetime. I believe that it'll not only affect ourselves here in this room today, it'll affect our generation next and the generation to follow. Something that is important to me when considering this is, what does our relationships look like in life? Not only in a global sense, but in our own personal lives. I mean, do we treat our relationships with respect? Is there honor? Is there a sense of responsibility in them? And when we're able to look at if we hold these relationships with those aspects, we can start to look how we interact with the world around us. Are we respecting the way that we walk on the ground? Are we respecting the way that we're interacting with the nature around us? And this is something that I try to do every day, and it's not so easy. I think that something that we can take from today learning sustainability is, what do we want to accomplish next? And I think how we approach that is going to also be one of the largest challenges we'll probably have to ask. Something that's important to me when understanding this concept is I look at some of the greatest teachers in my life. They happen to be my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, who has unfortunately walked on, but is still really speaking to me in ways that I can try to understand the world around me. When he spoke about the world around us and how to interact with it, he knew every tree, every rock, their names, and how they breathed, they worked with us. And that's something that I think that we've lost a sense of. You can say, yes, I have an indigenous perspective, but then you can ask yourself, where do you come from? Where do your people come from? What do they call the things around them? And how do they interact with those things? Something that is really important to me, that I think that we should take forth from this conversation today, is how are we going to interact and go forth and really try to make a difference and change? Is it going to be just one in one ear and out the next, or are we actually going to implement something that we think is going to be of necessary importance for tomorrow? So, yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, so now we have Ariane, who will be doing hers, and I will clear that up so you can get started.
All right, good morning. Currently, our entire economy is made of innumerable systems that function very well independently and interdependently, but that are not fully sustainable. I say not fully because they might address several of the 3 dimensions of sustainability, such as the economic and social dimensions, but not the environmental. Obviously, most of them address part of the 360 degrees, but not the entire cycle. Why? Because most decision makers of today, like me, did not hear of the concept of sustainability until they were well advanced into their careers, as they were managing systems that were already fully functional as they were. Many of today's decision makers actually want to change, but they don't even know where to start. The beauty of including sustainability in your education is that these concepts will come naturally to you and will be part of your thinking process. I'm now working in a company that specializes in sustainable solutions. The luxury and interior design industries are notoriously unsustainable. And our first focus was to do only sustainable interior design. As we saw the ignorance, in the truest sense of the word, about sustainability all around us, on every level, we decided that it was essential that we add an informational, educational dimension to our work and to transform our industry. Thus, we have added consulting, and we are making speeches, presentations, such as today. We also regularly look for people to collaborate with who might have found individual solutions that we can present to our clients. My associate, Marc Gervais, who's in this room, and I have just spent the last week at the Salone del Mobile in Milan. Our favorite part is seeing what the students have developed. We discussed with several of them from different countries, and we were delighted to find that they had studied sustainability. Our first thought was that it means that within the next 5 years, we might see a significant acceleration in sustainable practices. Ideally, the current management teams who are specialized in practices in their industry will welcome the recent graduates who are specialized in the concept of sustainability, and they will collaborate. However, we have noticed a few missing links, and we are now in talks with several international universities to bridge that gap and ensure that it reaches its full potential. Collaboration is key. We each bring specialized knowledge, and together we can find true solutions. Continuing on collaboration, you would be surprised how much different industries and disciplines inform each other. There are transferable skills, there are the processes of inspiration, competition, advances in which a discovery in one field enables progress in another. I trust that Franklin University Switzerland is providing you with all the knowledge that you might require for both the base curriculum and also your chosen subjects. And in addition to these, your education in sustainability will make you particularly ready to be the leaders to transform these industries. Develop your logical mind and problem solving. Most challenges you will come across will be unfamiliar to you, but a problem becomes an opportunity when you know how to approach it. First, you need to research and understand the system you are looking at in depth. Look at the micro and macro levels. Understand its patterns, connections, dependencies, correlations. You should understand its intrinsic logic and explain it. You cannot provide a viable, sustainable alternative unless that alternative itself functions and addresses what it addressed. Ensure that you also include the 3 dimensions of sustainability, balanced and fully 360-degree solutions. Every new problem should be approached with confidence and humility. Confidence because you know, you trust that you can resolve it. But also the understanding that when you first approach it, you don't know what you don't know. A system can be rendered sustainable in a certain environment through specific best practices, but would it function elsewhere? Learn about other cultures and countries. Discover what they think, how they act, that they have different needs and incentives, and yet they function in their own way. A solution that might work in one location might not work in another, but it might inspire a slightly edited version or several best practices. Franklin University Switzerland's diverse student and faculty are an excellent preparation for this. Learn about and from each other. And the academic travel is a rare opportunity to see it up close. Take advantage of the faculty around you. Think further, ask questions. I have learned tremendously from my 2 mentors, who are my associate, Marc Gervais, in this room. He will be discussing the importance of transdisciplinary collaboration in sustainable design this afternoon. and Harry E. Teasley Jr., who commissioned the very first life cycle analysis in the late 60s. He concepted it, and he also participated in the very first Earth Day. Lastly, approach it with a positive mindset. Much can be done. Create a strong network, keep learning. With everything moving exponentially fast, it means that you have to keep abreast of it. True, most news and advertisings are showing the very worst of it. But there is tremendous progress being made with so many creative startups, resourceful communities, and broader populations of intelligent, knowledgeable specialists who will become the leaders of tomorrow, such as yourselves.
Wow, that was powerful. We have some amazing panelists up here. So I'm going to shake it up, and I'm going to give the second question, and I'm going to leave Ariane to go again instead of the other way. And the next question is, as people who study or have studied aspects of sustainability, what do you think is a prominent issue regarding sustainability that our world faces today?
Well, the first mention of sustainability was made 3 centuries ago. I did not hear of it within my education. I'm not that old. I did not hear of it within my education. In fact, it wasn't until I was working at the Swiss mission to the UN in New York about 15 years ago that it appeared in my career. And that was when they were discussing what was called at the time the Millennium Development Goals, which are today's Sustainable Development Goals. Attending these talks felt exclusive. They seemed very specialized and limited to scientists or governments. Though the consensus was that this information, these concerns, had to be shared urgently with the broader population, which thankfully became the case. Within these 15 years, there was significant work that was done to raise awareness and ensure that people understood that this was a real concern. There is this increasing pressure now to resolve this and resolve it now, but few people understand the complexities that are involved, how everything is interconnected, how disruptive full immediate action would be. The actions have to be taken by today's decision makers, who were not raised with this information. They receive limited, simplified information that does not show the entire picture. How can they make educated decisions with that? On the other side is the public, the majority of which has only a limited understanding of it, mostly by attention-grabbing headlines, which are frankly terrifying. I mentioned the Salone del Mobile in Milan. There is so much greenwashing presented so perfectly that if we didn't know better, we would fall for it too. The resulting misunderstandings run the entire spectrum. Some people think that the only way to be truly sustainable is to live in a tent in the forest. And for some, living off-grid is true communion with nature, but it is not realistic for the entire population. Any potential solution needs to pass the test of scalability. What if you multiply this action by a few billion people? On the other end of the scale, some people are concentrating on the numbers and spending a significant amount of time analyzing everything. Beware of the source of the information. Anyone can create a website today. Statistics are notoriously misleading. Then, with all this data, it is easy to be overwhelmed, and that stops action. You think you find a solution to minimize an impact, and you realize that there's a trade-off with one or more other impacts. This is a very complex field. We have learned to be flexible and have accepted that there is no perfect solution, so it is necessary to prioritize and know your values. In our research and awareness raising, we have been stunned by the large amount of misinformation. Yet the consensus, thankfully, is that people love nature and they want to help it. They just don't know how, and they are exhausted by the constant finger pointing. They feel guilty for having aggressively hurt nature when they just thought they were living a normal life. Many companies have looked for shortcuts to avoid the cost of replacing their entire production line. Many efforts are made that might be misguided. For example, Products are made out of recycled materials. That is progress. But which binder is being used? It could be that an infinitesimal quantity of a petroleum-based binder renders a recycled, recyclable, biodegradable product entirely unsustainable. Some products seem good for the environment, but have in fact had a very polluting production. Others are made in such an intricate way that it will not be possible to separate the individual recyclable materials that constitute them to recycle them at the end of life of the product. Remember, we cannot create a sustainable world without all three dimensions. Some say that the environment is the most important. It is certainly the one that has been the most neglected. But no solution will be scalable or sustainable if we ignore the social or economic dimensions. Similarly, look for solutions that are fully 360 degrees. Inform and encourage those around you to think that way. Start small, even if they don't know how to make a big impact. Let them start with small gestures that lower their impact. So I encourage you, ask questions, check the full 360-degree cycle. Be patient. You are now in an environment of academics who focus on this, and Franklin University Switzerland collaborates with many corporations which are very aware of sustainable practices. But it is not the case of the majority of the population. When you work for a cause or a purpose that is bigger than you, it is both your goal and your fuel. It is another dimension, and it is rewarding in and of itself. But do it thoroughly, do it right, or you might make it worse.
Thank you so much. All right, Paige, you are next.
Something that I think that sustainability should focus more on is accessibility. I believe that most material that is being published at the moment is coming in English, and only about 25% of the population of the Earth is able to read English. To that, I also believe that because we aren't being given information that is necessarily digestible or simple, it limits a lot of people to have an ability to do something about it. When we are able to encompass a wider audience, I think that we'll be able to see much more activity and a lot more just a lot more like push to make these things more viable and be integrated into our communities. I think that for sustainability, going forward into the future, another large issue that we should be focusing on, obviously, from my perspective, is our water consumption and what we do with that. For that, I believe that if we are really conscious and asking our companies that we work with or that we are in touch with or that we use their products of just kind of questioning what are their just like ability to do something more in their conservation efforts. If we are able to ask and really push forward in this direction, then I think that we'll be able to see some change in this area. So that's kind of exciting, and that's something that I really hope for in the future. And if you are able to just kind of pick something and focus on it, what you'd like to see changing in your community, hopefully you'll be able to get some grassroots going and be able to push the narrative forward.
Thank you so much, Paige. So for our new people who have just come in, we're answering some kickoff questions. And the second question that we are answering, as people who study or have studied aspects of sustainability, what do you think is a prominent issue regarding sustainability that our world faces today? So our next person will be Kate.
Sorry about that brief interruption. So when I was posed this question, I honestly was quite overwhelmed because, as we know, sustainability covers basically all dimensions. So I was like, how am I supposed to talk about just one thing? But I decided to talk about our food systems because it affects all of us, as we all love and appreciate and need food to live. So our food systems are obviously not sustainable, the way that we massively consume food and produce it. But often there's this debate if local food systems or global food systems are better, are more sustainable. But this question doesn't really address the underlying issues of our food systems, such as food insecurity, unfair power distribution, and the interconnected environmental nutritional decline that both food systems, local and global, struggle with. So instead, I argue that we should transform our food systems around resilience principles to address these underlying issues. So I got this idea from a paper, Wood et al., titled Reframing the Local Global Food System Debate Through a Resilience Lens. And basically, they highlight several resilience principles that can be integrated into our food systems, management and government mechanisms at all scales, which can support the transformation to a sustainable food system. So here, I'm going to address 4 critical issues that our current food system faces and provide resilience reframing and transformative sustainable pathways to move forward. So first, I'm going to discuss the interconnected environmental and nutritional decline that we are seeing all over the world. Our food systems are a single largest driver of environmental degradation, and most countries are challenged by at least one form of malnutrition, from undernourishment to obesity. And our current food system fails to deliver on the most important function of supporting human health. These 2 issues of environment and nutrition are heavily interconnected, as climate change is making growing food nearly impossible or largely difficult in many regions of the world. But our food system also greatly contributes to climate change as it is a major greenhouse gas producer. So to move away from this, we have to integrate diversity into all aspects of our food system. Diversity within our food system is rapidly decreasing at multiple scales, which threatens sustainability in terms of both the environment and human health. So we must target diversity on all scales through management and government practices, considering the diversity of crops, the diversity of our land, our agricultural practices, as well as our diversity of livelihood options for our farmers, our nutritional diversity of our diets, and the diversity of food cultures that exist around the world. To do this, we need key local and global actors to ensure and to support them, to ensure that they have the power, the tools, and the understanding to incentivize moving away from subsidies that support unsustainable monoculture and move towards supporting diversification across all scales. The second and very related issue that we currently face is our food insecurity. From 2019 to 2022, the number of people experiencing prolonged food insecurity increased by as many as 150 million, driven by COVID-19, increased conflict, and climate change. Food availability is ultimately determined by production, distribution, and exchange. So we must change these systems. We must ensure that food is produced sufficiently, but not overly connected to a global system. And we need accessibility that requires local self-sufficiency with a moderate scale of connectivity across regional and global dimensions. To do this, we must shift from a focus of international trade as a means of economic growth to a more holistic mindset that emphasizes the balance of economic and social goals as a resilient strategy for facing increasingly uncertainty. Finally, or not finally, but thirdly, I'm going to talk about the inequity in governments that our food system is burdened with. The governments of our food system causes extreme injustices in regards to affordable and healthy, accessible food. And such dynamics have resulted in harmful, unsustainable environmental, social, and economic outcomes. The power and benefits must be equitably distributed among actors and sectors. To do this, we need a broad, polycentric government structure, ensuring local communities can develop regionally and culturally appropriate means to produce and distribute their food, allowing for local food production to thrive. And the final topic that I'm going to briefly discuss is food system illiteracy, which I feel like for many of us is not something that we're as familiar with. But something just to think about is we consume food every single day, multiple times a day. But how often do we actually consider where this food is coming from, who produced it, how it got to our plates? Food system illiteracy refers to the loss of knowledge across all parts of the food system and the limited ability to understand the complexity of our food systems. We have to reframe how we think about food. We need to achieve food literacy by viewing it as a slow variable that changes gradually, with increasingly strengthening our monitoring and feedback systems. We must increase traceability and transparency of our food system practices to increase individual knowledge and encourage global actors to change their practices. Education plays a critical role in supporting our mainstream sustainability food system, but we also need the support and change of our governmental systems. Finally, our food system needs to change across all scales, across all sectors. The way to go about this change is looking at our food system through a resilience lens to transform toward a sustainable food system that can be achieved at local and global levels. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we have Casey.
I believe as one of the most prominent issues facing sustainability in our world today is that of accountability. I think there's a big debate on who should be held accountable, which actors are responsible for finding solutions to sustainability, but I think we also need to consider how they can be held accountable. And here at Franklin, the basis of my studies is corporate social responsibility, which is ensuring that corporations consider all of their stakeholders' needs regarding not only environmental, but also economic and social sustainability. So taking a look at that perspective and having businesses as the main actor, I want to look at how the other disciplines of our society can hold these corporations accountable and ensure that they are on the path to sustainability. So one main actor that people look to is the government. They say the government is there to protect our security and peace and well-being. So how can governments regulate businesses? Through policies, through passing laws. That tends to work, but also currently we see a lot of large corporations involved in lobbying or monetary donations and backing to these political campaigns. So can we really feel certain in saying that these governmental policies are unbiased and are effective in regulating corporations? The second actor is citizens, consumers, ourselves. We have purchasing power. We are the ones that are financially backing these companies by consuming their products. And we can avoid this. We can boycott if we really want to make a difference, but also have to look at greenwashing tactics that businesses employ. Do we really know which corporations are sustainable? Are we are they transparent in what is in their products, in the processes that they use to make their products? So are we informed enough to make these decisions and to personally make changes? And I think that this is one of the biggest issues, to really focus on our system of checks and balances, because I think that it's lacking. I think that we need to make sure we have more ways to hold each other accountable for continuing on this plan and for communicating sustainability within all of society. Because if we can't have this system, if we can't ensure this accountability, then none of our actions are transparent, and no one is being encouraged to participate, and it makes it so much more difficult to reach our goal if we cannot keep each other on the right path. And this is something that we need to work together collectively to solve.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists for sharing their different views and commitment to sustainability. So I feel this would be a good time. We have about 8 minutes if the audience would like to ask a few questions. I see so many hands up. I can't take it. I mean, who would like to go? I know there's some curious thoughts. If not, I do have some leading questions that our panelists can answer. So, still no. Okay, we have Bella. She's right. Thank you, Bella.
Okay, so you guys were all kind of talking about, is this on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Like education, and I think especially in the college setting, it's really important to speak about education. And I know Paige was talking about accessibility, and then you were talking about transparency, and how even if we're considered transparent, who is able to understand and read and use that knowledge, because oftentimes it's just numbers. Personally, I'm not a math person, so I see numbers and I get scared. But this question asks, what avenues do you think we should take to educate people? What platforms, how we can globally educate? Do we need it through government and like United Nations? Or what do you think could be the best form to create accessibility and education and get it out to the most people? Back to you.
Something that I think is really unique to telling people about this issue is that not everybody's going to digest it the same. And one thing that I've found that works is storytelling. I think that everybody has been in a position of when they're hearing a great storyteller, and it kind of sticks to them for the rest of their life. And I think if we're able to convey the message of sustainability / like climate justice, if we are able to convey it in a way that really speaks to people, that's going to stick with them, then it will really make a difference. In terms of like different like governmental actors that can make a difference, I really think it starts at the community level. I don't think that you're going to really get people to have the momentum behind it if they don't feel passionate about it or like they have a place in it. And so if you're able to really get this grassroots movement going and people are willing to change their own backyard before they change other places around the world, then people will really take a liking to seeing this like fortuitous thing happening within their own lives. So.
I'm just going to continue on what you said. I think it's very important for people to relate to it, to connect to it, to feel that. So this concept of storytelling or connecting with people directly, we've had the government tell us about it, we've had the UN tell us about it, we've seen numbers. If anything, we're just scared and worried, but we don't even know how to act. So I think a human level is very, very important. I completely agree. What we're doing is, public speaking, connecting with people. We're writing a book. We're trying to bring a challenge, but it has to be on the human level that we really make any difference, I think. We've tried the other ways.
Just to briefly add, along with storytelling, I think for me, the most impactful way that I've learned about sustainability and kind of has inspired greater change within myself and kind of inspiration for the world has been through documentaries. So I think that is a form of storytelling that is really impactful because you don't have to look at numbers, you don't have to even read, you just can watch and they evoke so many emotions, and this is an emotional topic. Sustainability isn't light-hearted at all, but I think that it also should inspire us to be excited about it and passionate about change, because we're changing the world for the better, not for the worse, hopefully. So I think there's a lot of ways to do that, and a lot of people, that's their life, is just making really incredible documentaries. So I don't see myself doing that. I don't know anything about film, but if we can make those more accessible to a greater population, that'd be really cool.
I might get laughed at for this answer, but seeing as this panel is also to look at the differences between generations, I want to bring up the point of social media and being a massive platform to educate, especially the youth, because we're on it constantly, every day, and I think personally that has been something that has actually gotten me involved and allowed me to see the news and keep up to date on current events. Obviously, there's issues of transparency still within that, but I think that is an avenue that we can really work upon, and we can build communities in. That's something really accessible to everyone today.
All right. Okay, so it is almost time for our next session. So I want to give these women another round of applause. They did an excellent job this morning sharing their different views and their commitment to sustainability, and I want to thank you all for being here this morning.